Yo, this is Rosco P. Coldchain, and I'd like to give a shout out to Mikey T, the movie star.
Rosco P. Coldchain, man. First of all, I want to welcome you to the podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show, joining me to have this conversation.
I'm here, brother. I'm here. No doubt.
Yeah, man. You're fresh home. What is it? 3 months. The world has changed. Music has changed. Can you tell me how it is coming out and seeing all the changes?
Culture shock. That's really what it is. It's exciting. You know what I mean? Ultimately, it's good to see, you know, how the world has just evolved into this fast-paced type of society. You know what I mean? Like everything is instant, everything is just right at the touch of your fingers. So that's like, you know, futuristic. That's some futuristic shit, right? Right? But um still it's like when it's bad, it's bad. You know what I mean? And like in terms of character standards, morale, you know what I mean? It's pretty much non-existent.
Now, before we get started, I want to ask, like, what's your status now, day to day? Are you back in the studio? Are you currently on parole or any sort of ankle monitoring device?
Yeah, I'm on parole, no ankle monitor. Everything is day to day. I'm still in the studio. Um, the music's better than ever, and I'm excited for you guys to hear it.
Last night should have never happened. I saw the trailer on your YouTube page. For everyone who wants to subscribe, I'm going to leave a link in the description of this video. Is that the project that you're working on? And can you tell me what that title symbolizes for you?
Yeah, that is the project I'm working on, and it symbolizes everything that happened from the time of my deal up until now in my incarceration.
I want to get into
Yeah.
the whole story, but first, let's take it back. Can you tell me about growing up in North Philly? How was early life for you growing up?
Growing up, it was normal, I guess, in terms of, anybody that lives in the ghetto, you know what I mean, the urban communities, you saw shit, you did shit, you know. My household, obviously, I was raised in an Islamic household, so I had a pretty strict upbringing when it came to listening to music. So, I would sneak over to family members' houses and listen to it, and I fell in love with it. Um, but with any hood, you got your trials and tribulations and ups and downs. So yeah.
What was it that got you into hustling at an early age, 11, 12 years old? We had heard 50 Cent speak on that, and it was actually depicted in his movie Get Rich or Die Trying. But when I heard you say that, man, it's like you don't hear too many artists saying they get started that early in life.
Um, I was always, I had a very strict upbringing, and so I had family members. They would aunts, um, uncles, cousins that sold drugs. Um, I glorify. It was. I'm not going to say I glorified it, but what I will say is I saw a means to an end, and so me being a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of a child, um, I wanted what they had. I wanted, the money. I wanted, and naturally, I didn't look at the end result of it, right? Because I'm so young. I'm not even formulated. My whole brain hasn't even formed completely yet, right? So, um, I just wanted to be able to take care of myself and have those same nice things that I saw my family members with and the guys on the corner. And so through having that strict household and having all of that, it was just like, I'm out, I'm running, and I ran away from home, and I'd sell drugs to whoever gave it to me.
So what was it that started getting you involved in music and recording, being that you weren't really allowed to even listen to the music?
Um, I had older cousins, so when I would go over family members' houses, they would allow me to um indulge into the music, right? Because everybody was a Muslim, right? Um, or I'm not even gonna say Muslim, but everybody wasn't strict. And so yeah, I would go over my cousin's house, listen to hip hop. I had an uncle that played guitar, so I always loved music in itself. And those early days of hip hop, I would just sit there and um, just really dive into the art form of it. And I loved the beats. I loved the aggression. I loved the rebellion of it. And so that's what it was, you know.
Who were some of the artists that actually inspired you to get into the game as well? Who were you listening to?
Ah man, everybody, man. Cool G Rap, Run, Schoolie D, NWA hands down, Public Enemy hands down. And it always organized confusion. I was like really I became like almost like a hip hop aficionado. You know what I mean? Like I could, you know, from the '80s to the '90s, I can get into and delve into so many different groups. Native Tongue, Jungle Brothers, um, you know, Tribe, Leaders of a New, um, even things from like, from my city, Tough Crew, um, Tracy Lee or Trey, you know what I mean? Like it was just Bahamadia, Guru. It was just I just loved hip hop. So it was never specifically like any just one person. It was the whole essence of it, in which I loved.
What were some of the first opportunities you got, when you first started getting into the game? I know you actually started with a few groups before going solo.
Yeah, I was down with a group called the Madmen Double M initially, and they started with my man Buck Carnell and a producer by the name of Fame. Um, but we were young, and we were all just trying to learn it. And then as time progressed, I had a few other individuals from another part of the city, um, which kind of involved my cousin, and a few friends of mine. My man Rick Lowe, he's originally from Crown Heights, New York. He came down to the Phillies. He came down to Philly, like mid to the early '90s. And he's a low life, right? So he came down with his flavor. They rap different. My man Cash and my man Dirty Reek, rest in peace. And so later on down the line, in my late teens to early 20s, uh, we formulated a group called the Stockholders. And, you know, I took from all of them, you know what I mean? And just figured it out.
So what was the timeline of you getting on Too Raw to the Streets? Was it before you had signed with Pharrell, or was it right after? Because Star was getting a lot of people before they actually got their deals.
Now, this was before. This was before the deal. Um, but, even still, I was only being recognized in the city, right? I wasn't even really being recognized globally or even nationally for that matter. You know what I mean? So Star really got me popping in the city.
You actually started building your presence on the DVD scene, but battle rap was also a market back then. Even rappers with deals were doing a lot of battling. What was it that made you stay away from it, or did you ever get an opportunity to jump in it?
Nah, I was never that kind of guy. I don't like people in my face. So, um, I always kind of held that kind of standard to say, okay, I just want you to hear me. I don't really want to get too disrespectful because things go certain places.
So what was your relationship with Philly's Most Wanted?
Um, Prior to, we really didn't have a relationship. Prior to me meeting Pharrell, we really didn't have a relationship. You see guys around the way. I think one of them, we went to school together. I want to say it was bubonic. We went to school together, but it's in elementary. Um, but we didn't really have a relationship prior to meeting Pharrell. Our relationship began to build once I met Pharrell.
Can you tell me about your early connection with major figures and how you were able to learn watching from them?
Yeah, my family member, my cousin, was initially in Major Figures. Shout out to El De Niro. So he would bring me around them, um, to sit around and just soak up the game. They were pretty much in the industry. They had everybody knocking at the door to get deals and trying to sign them. And so they were consummate professionals in how they approached the craft. And particularly Bump J, Gill, and Ab Lava. I used to watch them, and how they presented themselves, in terms of performance, right? And so I was so passive in my approach. I was blase blah in how I rapped. So watching them gave me that, okay, this is how I need to be a performer. This is how I need to present myself. And that's what they did for me.
What type of relationship did you get to have with Gilly? Did the two of you ever work?
No, we didn't. Me and Gil, we were always cordial. It was never any beef, never anything. He was always funny, um, animated as hell. Uh, he's a good dude. I think out of everybody, me and Lava had the closest relationship.
Right, you guys would go on to link up even on your your major single. Um, had you met Wallow inside of jail, or were you two outside working, when you had known El De Niro from Major Figures?
No, me and Wallow know each other from the '90s. My my older cousin, Nah, and Wallow were super tight. And that's who Nah is the one that taught me how to rap. And so Wallow would spend a night over, my aunt's house, and I would come up from North Philly on the weekend, and Wallow would be up there, and they'd be doing, causing mischief or whatever have you. And that's how me and him got solid. Yeah. So, and obviously Rick Lowe, they were all low lives. And the low life clique, they stem from New York, but it was a big section of the low lives in Philadelphia.
So the spotlight was on Philly, man. Jay-Z was looking at Gilly and Major Figures. He ended up signing Beanie and State Property, and you came across Pharrell. Can you tell me how you ended up meeting Pharrell in Philly?
At a Philly's Most Wanted video shoot, um, saw a guy walking down the street. He looked vaguely familiar. Saw him on television prior to, on Khalees's videos, Hate You So Much Right Now. And in that, um, I was like, this guy, man, I think he may be somebody. And so I decided to pull his coat, pulled him to the side, and said, yo, man, you ever hear the guy Rosco P? And he was like, no, who is he? And I was like, just give me a second. I'll go get him. I'll be right back. And he continued to talk on the phone. He stood there, and as he was standing there, he was beginning to get slightly irritated. And I was just like, hey, bro, give me a second. I'm gonna get him. And he's like, yo, like, come on, man. Like, and I walked over to him, and started spitting something into his ear, and he enjoyed it. And from there he was just like, "Can you do it again?" I said, "Yeah," and it was on. I started rapping against a few guys, and ciphers ensued, and gave me his card, and he said, "Look, man, get with me," and I was on.
So you actually told Pharrell Roscoe P is the hottest artist in Philly and he is coming. But you're Roscoe. Like, how does
Yeah.
your relationship with Pharrell process from there? How does that thing start to play out from there?
Um, Natural progression, man, organically, bro. Like he, everything from there was just like, you know, he took me under his wing, gave me solid game, um, and just changed my life for the better.
How long from there did it take you to formally sign with Star Trek?
About 2 years. Yeah, about 2 years. I want to say, yeah, about 2 years.
So how did things go when you first signed to Pharrell? How was the transition for you from the streets?
Um, I mean, I had more money to do more dumb shit. So that's just what it was. I mean, at that time, you got to remember, man, it was so many different crews and so many different cliques, um, that were representing the streets. And so we were the newest crew. And not necessarily saying that we were representing it, but ultimately, um, the music the music stated that, right? We were just coming from a different angle. And so in terms of like the direct drug talk in which people use now, um, you know, Pusha obviously was using it then, right? 4.5 to get you in the game. Mollison was using it then. And so it's just, everybody was doing it, man. And the crew, once we got on, um, it was just on from there, bro.
Yeah, man. Can we talk about the video you guys would go on to shoot? Hot damn. How was it filming that video?
Ah, man, it was great, bro. It was, we shut the shit we shut the city down, man. It was it was a very, very emotionally humbling, joyous, grateful moment. And in Philadelphia history and hip hop history, and in my life, it was gratifying.
Yeah, my bro SV Twiz from Philly was telling me it's crazy, when you drop the video, because the only other dudes at that time that shot a video in Philly was Rockefeller with Freeway and PD Crack for the Flip Side. And they shot that out in the Badlands. But seeing Clipse out there running down the back blocks or the blocks on North Philly, the scene where you were actually getting chased by the police, you know what I mean? Shooting in
Right.
the trenches, man. How were you made aware that, we're coming out to Philly to shoot the video? Like we're sending the cameras out there to Philly.
Oh, they told me it was the label, and we coming down. It's that simple, brother.
So actually take me into when you guys recorded the record. Was it all of you guys in the studio? Were you guys in the studio all the time recording?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, we
something
all
you
were.
happen to do?
Yeah, we all were in the studio. Um, Pharrell came with the beat. We heard it. Everybody instantly began vibing, and once we were done, we just knew it was magic.
There's two different versions of the record, one
It
on
is.
Lord Willing album and one actually dropped on Pharrell's the Neptune's Clones album.
Right.
So how was it, man? I got to ask you, how was it bringing Pharrell out to your hood? At first, you went to his video shoot, but now you're bringing Pharrell out to your city for this video.
Oh man, I mean, Pharrell's always in the city. He has family members down here. Um, you know, it's not like he was a stranger to Philadelphia, put it like that. And so it was just a natural thing. As a star, I'm sure it was different for him, right? Because now you got all of these people running up to you in another city, right? But um, he's been here. Like, again, he has family here. Um, and dude like him, he got security, so he wasn't. It wasn't like he was scared. You know what I mean? Like, and homies, not to mention. So he felt safe. We felt comfortable, man, and it was just a natural thing, bro.
Yeah. It just must have been such a different experience, having been with him at the Phillies Most Wanted shoot to now having your own shoot with the man. You know what I'm saying?
Um, yeah, I mean, I, we was like I said, it was a different experience because of the polarity, like the fame of it. You know what I'm saying? Like now it's 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 real for everybody. And in terms of me and in terms of, the people that I love that's from my neighborhood. So, you know, it was more or less like if he made it, we made it.
You guys did a lot together as a label. I was actually just watching Summer Jam 2003, man. What was Summer Jam 2003 like?
Summer Jam 2003 was rainy. I remember that. But I mean, it was another day, man. Honestly, we were rocking so many different stadiums and shows and places that, it wasn't like this big grandiose thing to me. It was just like another day at work.
Can you tell me about working with Pusha T and Malice?
Um, a learning experience. They taught me how to count bars, one, because I didn't know how to count bars. So they learned me how to count bars. Um, and it's just like that's my bros. There's nothing. Everything is natural with them. You know what I'm saying? Like it's never a scenario of. It's always like we're sparring. When we go in and we land these verses and we go to work, it's like we sparring in the ring. You know what I mean? But outside of music, that's my genuine folks, man. Like they my bros. Period. Like
Ab Lava from Major Figures was also working with the group. Can you tell me
right.
about that? I mean, like, how were the studio sessions with y'all locking in? You got Clipse, you got Pharrell over here. You know what I mean? What was those studio sessions like?
Lava is like the ultimate. He's the ultimate ear. Like
Salute to Lava.
Lava is world renowned for his writing prowess. He's like one of the best rappers I've ever heard in my life. And he has one of the best ears I've ever heard in my life. And so writing with him and working with him, you always get good game because he'll hear something that you don't hear. He'll see something that you don't see. So working with dudes like him, working with dudes like Pharrell, um, who can pretty much see the things that you don't and hear the things that you don't, it builds you into a professional. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's always fun. It's a learning experience.
You also featured on I'm Not You,
Right.
featuring Jadakiss and Styles P. Were you around the collabo with the Locks, or was that something that you came into the studio, was already done?
No, that was an email. That came from an email. I wasn't there when they did it, so I didn't have a chance to meet the guys or anything like that.
How did you feel about recording with Jadakiss while he had just been beefing with Beanie Siegel, even though it was under the Clipse umbrella?
I ain't got nothing to do with that. I don't get nobody. I don't get involved in nobody else's beef. I don't got beef. You know what I'm saying?
What do you remember most about I'm Not You? That was the second record you had actually had. on that same album?
Um, I remember the reaction of everybody, you know, of me being on a record with some of the greatest rappers at that time. You know what I mean? Everybody was just amazed. So
Still at this
you
time
know,
too.
yeah, ain't no doubt. So no, it was a great learning experience. You know what I mean? Just go down in history, bro.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And that's actually two cuts that you got on the second Clipse album.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So that's pretty lit to have two cuts on their album. It's building a lot of buzz. Next up, you record on Hot with Pharrell, Pusha T, Bubonic. Do you remember
Right.
recording Hot for the Clones album?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I didn't like the beat, and I remember Pharrell telling me, "Man, you got to rap over it." And I was just like, I wasn't that. It was a a a, a record spinning backwards. So I didn't see I didn't see the genius at that time of what he was doing. And so the only thing that I did, I just rapped over it. Obviously, I came with my best, and it was big. Everybody loved it. To this day, people still dance to it, and it's awesome.
So just following the history, the next record you appear on Chinese New Year, which drops on the Clipse third album. How did you
Yeah.
feel about the Clipse being referred to as coke rap?
I knew they were more than that. I think that was just a you know a niche, if you will. Like, okay, they're good at it, right? But um, they encompass more than that. But when you start off like something, this is what the people expect from you, and that's what he's good at, and that's what they're good at. But I know, and I've heard other things that embody other than just coke rap.
Do you remember that record, Chinese New Year?
In terms of what?
Like, do you remember jumping in the studio and recording that? Is that
Oh yeah,
something
without a
maybe?
doubt, without a doubt, without a doubt. That was oh man. We were in New York. I want to say it might have been Sony Studios. I can't remember. Um, Fucking beat stupid, and I just remember how aggressive and hard the beat was. And I was on some shit, and you know what I mean. And the homies was trying to feed me, so they like, nigga, get on this shit, And yeah, I went in there, killed it, and it was one of the best records on the album.
Yeah, facts, man. So the Clipse albums, I mean, the second album drops in 2002. This album drops in '06. So we got a bit of a 4-year time frame between the albums. How did you, keep your relationship with Pusha T and Malice throughout those years?
We was always good. It was never anything, honestly. You know what I mean? That's my bros, period. Like, I ain't got nothing bad to say about them dudes. And it always just been a brotherhood.
Yeah, Pusha T had spoke about you in a 2015 interview with Ebro in the morning, and he said, it's funny because my musical experience hasn't been the same. He said, I don't enjoy the rapper things like I used to, just running out with your team. What was it about working with Clipse that was so natural with you?
We got each other. It's hard to find people that get you. And we grew with each other in terms of musically and experience, right? This is my first tour ever. And so, whether they've been on tours together or not, but I'm sure at that time, them touring, we moved as a unit. And so that sense of camaraderie between your comrades, um, we done been through some shit together. So it's like, I got your back. And I know they had mine. And so when you don't have that sense, sometimes it may fuck with you a little bit. And that probably in that moment, that's how he felt.
What was your take on Malice stepping away from rap and even going by No Malice?
You asked us some really good questions.
I appreciate you for answering them, bro.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
really.
I respect that you answer the questions that pertain to you. You know what I mean? With good answers and shit.
Yeah. I understood like those, Miles he's always been introspective. You know what I'm saying? Like he's always looked deeply into things. He's never been a surface level type of guy. So in him understanding the influence and the power of influence, I got that he was affected by it because he understood the destruction of what he was speaking and how he was speaking, how all of the influence that he was causing these dudes to do some crazy shit, right? Things that he probably felt as though he no longer stood on. So I couldn't fault him for that, right? Because I'm at that place now in life, in a sense, But if he ever decided, and when he decides to, um, come back to the mic, you know, it's still gonna be like he never left because he's that dope. You know what I mean? He's just going to be giving it up from a different perspective.
So from there, you also had the video for Delinquent, which was about bringing the president to the hood. Was the single Delinquent for promotion on your upcoming solo album?
Yeah, it was supposed to be. It was just to see if the streets would catch on and like it. It was nothing. It wasn't really meant to be a single. It was just like, all right, we're gonna throw it out there and see if it sticks to the wall. But yeah, that's all it was.
Was that what it was supposed to be originally? The president coming to the hood? I had heard you saying something about training day or something.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the president coming to the hood, but they tried to mix it with like the
Training.
goddamn car from Training Day, and I'm like, nah. My visual, because it was necessarily, mentally, it was a vision that I saw because I wanted the president to come to the hood. You know what I'm saying? Benny Boom just executed, but again, we couldn't find the right vehicle, and then somebody just came through with a 6'4" and was like, "Dry this." So I was like, all right, yeah, we're gonna have him in the bush in the car. You know what I'm saying, and drive him through the hood. And that's how it went.
Man, that is some, you know what I mean? That's kind of some next level shit right there, to be real with you. And
No
Benny
doubt.
Boom shot it as well.
Yeah, Benny Boom, he's from Philly. So he knows that, the nooks and crannies and crevices of the city. So um he knew our vision and he executed well.
Wow. Benny Boom would go on to direct All Eyes on Me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what's up, man. What was it like having him direct your video, man? Do you remember any moments where you guys were speaking during the video?
Yeah, Benny's just he's a professional, bro. You know what I mean? He's from the cities, very just professional. You know what I mean? That's pretty much the word I can say is, business oriented, and when he sees the vision, he executes it.
Did he mention anything about training day that day? Was he like, we got the car from training day?
No, yeah, he did. He did. He did. And I was like, that's not it.
That's crazy because the original director of All Eyes on Me was going to be Antoine Fuqua. who directed Training Day. You know what I mean? And he stepped
Oh
out,
shit.
and then Benny Boom stepped in.
Right.
Pretty crazy, man. Pretty crazy.
Right. No doubt. My bag, bro.
No worries, man. But what do you think about just to put a bow on this? What do you think about a Philly native getting the opportunity to tell the story of Tupac?
I didn't look at it. I didn't never look at it from that perspective. I've always just looked at it. Um, the best person who can tell it, who can do, the story justice and to do the man justice while he's in the grave. And I think it was a good story. I think he directed it very, very well.
Shit's amazing right there.
Yeah, brother.
That shit's amazing. What was it that ultimately continued to hold up your album? You know, why would your album never be released with Star Trek?
Labels. It was labels. It was partly labels. It was partly me. Um, we were with Arista. In the midst of me being with Arista, they became defunct. So then we had to find another home. We went over to Interscope, and we had to find our footing over there. And at that time, they had 50 Cent, to be honest. And so Pharrell he was trying to brand himself. In the midst of branding himself, branding the label, so we can get some footing over at Interscope. And in doing so, this 50 Cent guy just gave these people back like 80 something million. You know what I'm saying? So they're not really worried about us because you got this guy over here generating millions. And so, at the same time, your biggest star from our camp at the moment now has to be Pharrell. And, you know, it was just hard to find footing over there. They weren't worried about me. They were more worried about Pharrell. And Pharrell was more worried about me. You know what I'm saying? So in turn, brother got to do what he got to do to eat and survive.
Can you tell me what ultimately led to the breakup with Pharrell and Star Trek, if there was one? Was there a series of events, or were you cut off guard?
No, jail, bro. I don't think I was. Star Trek was no longer once we didn't have a label. You know what I'm saying? But the brotherhood remained because it's deeper than music. So, technically in my heart, I'm always going to be Star Trek. I was always going to be that. But in terms of, on paper, it's over because people that moved on to do different things. But in terms of, camaraderie and that friendship, and whatever I do, I'm a rep them. Because I know, they'll do the same for me.
2008, you're arrested. Can you tell me what you were charged with, and how did the event take place when you were actually arrested?
I'm not going to get into the take place. But what I will say is it was homicide, third-degree homicide.
Were you able to make bail at this time? And how did the case play out? Was it a plea bargain, or did you end up going to trial?
Nah, I went to jail, took a deal for 10 to 20.
So when you were going through it, did any familiar faces show up, or any artists that you worked with? Did anybody show support to you through your incarceration?
Ab Lava, Ab Lava, and Pusha, all of them, my gang. Pusha, Ab Lava, and Pharrell pretty much were instrumental in how everything went. Lava was coming to see me regularly. Obviously, Pusha, um, he did what he could, and he did a lot. And Pharrell did what he could, and he did a lot. Um, you know, it's really no more. Like the dudes made sure I was fine and comfortable while I was in jail.
So you ended up serving 14 years. Can you tell me about having to sit down for that many years? I want to say you've got to be I looked it up. I did some research and you're actually the artist coming out of jail who has served the most amount of years. And
Really.
actually get back into rap.
It it was painful. You know what I mean? It's nothing other than an immense amount of pain and a learning experience. Um, again, I lost so many things. Um, and not just with losing, but hurting so many people in the process of me, because you don't realize how many people depend on you. And I had so many people that depended on me. And it all came out you know, when I got my time. It was like friends, family, cousins, aunts, uncles, mom, brother, sister. And so a lot of people passed away. Um, I lost a lot of opportunity. Um, and I lost time, which is the most valuable thing you could possibly have because you can't get it back. So at this point, I'm just blessed. And I feel blessed to even be allowed to have a second chance at anything.
Were there any other artists from Philly that you came across in the jails?
Was it? That's a good question. It was. My folks. I don't know if you know Raw Buck, um, from D Block, Bucky.
Bucky, yep.
You know, you know, we're family, and so he came through, and actually we were in the county together, and we were upstate together. And so when he left and beat his life sentence and came home, I was up there to see him off. You know what I mean? So him, um, and I'm sure right offhand I can't remember. I'm sure it was more, but yeah, half of those guys I can barely. You know what I mean? Like it was that traumatizing.
Yeah, I did want to ask about Bucky. Did you guys meet while you were outside, or did you meet on the inside, or was it through mutual friends? How did the two of y'all meet?
I knew Bucky all my life. Bucky is my cousin's brother. You walking with me? So my blood cousin and him are brothers. So he's technically my cousin, but it's from his father's side. You know what I mean? But he's family to us. I knew him all my life.
That's what's up, man. Glad to hear that Bucky is free. I'd actually just done an interview with Snipe Life, and he had great things to say about Bucky, being that they were both label mates.
Right, right. He's a wonderful human being, man. Great character.
What is your current relationship with Pharrell and Clipse?
Good. Um, I actually haven't spoken to Pharrell yet. I've spoken to Pusha numerous amount of times. Family, spoken to family numerous amount of times. Um, and yeah, everything's good, bro. It's nothing.
Yeah, man, Pusha T is a real one. I actually got the chance to interview him in Miami, actually at Scott Storch's studio. Scott Storch,
God,
yep, Scott. You got a
man.
Scott Storch story, bro?
Yeah,
Some
I
of
got a
those
Scott
stories.
story. I first met Scott. Um, I met him once, and I met him with Mark and Sherm Byers at the time, and they were some tough guys. I'm gonna just say that. And Scott, he was told to give me a beat, and yeah, so I'm just leave it at that. But I met him, and he was an all right guy.
Were you guys at the Hit Factory or something in the
We were
studio or at his
actually in a
crib?
back. He had a S500 Benz that we were in the back of in a garage, and yeah,
That's what's up,
that's
man.
that's just that. Yep.
I just wanted to say, Pusha T was there checking Scott Storch, and I had
Mhm.
asked him for an interview, and he was like, "Yeah, we can do it." His manager was like, "Yeah, we'll be in town a few days, Mikey T. We can do it." And Pusha T was like, "Nah, let's do that shit right now." So I always respected that. You know what
Dope.
I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Push, man. Like I said, he's a different breed. He doesn't deal with ego, bro. He
Facts.
doesn't deal with ego, bro. These guys are just real guys, man.
But I wanted to ask you, did you ever get a chance to meet Arab?
Nah, my man, I got a homie named Nemo. I think I met him in a club once, and then he was actually a friend of mine. That was his homie, but we never met.
One thing I really wanted to ask you, I don't know how if you really want to elaborate on it. You're from Philly though. You know, are appeals likely in Philly? Max B had a sentence reduction from 75 years to 20 years. Arab was actually sentenced to 45 years. How likely are appeals in Philly, if you could speak on that?
Well, I mean, it's not the fact of an appeal; it's the fact of it being honored. But it's such of a corrupt state at once upon a time when we had Lynn Abraham and she was a wicked DA and Seth Williams was a wicked DA. But now we're dealing with this new guy called Larry Krasner. And he has an office um who's really trying to fight, corruptness in the city in terms with these cops and um, just the system. And um yeah, the FOP and certain people, they're trying to get him out, right? Because a lot of people are overturning a lot of shit. Um, but some of the good old boys who are used to doing certain things, they don't want him in office, right? When you think of money, um, here's the problem with it. I mean, you overturn a lot of sentences, that's a lot of money, right? Because you'll owe some people who's going to sue your ass for keeping them down, right? So now the city or the government or the state or whoever has to give up millions if you just let these people off scot free. And America is pretty much built on the deal or no deal, right? Or you just won't see the streets. A lot of people, the percentage of people who give life sentences back, who give astronomical time back, is pretty low. And so how they operate specifically in PA, um, they try to make you, man, they try to make you sit, man. And they try to get as much time out of you as possible. I think AR is in him himself. I think he's in the feds. I don't know. I don't know his. You know, I don't. And not to be ignorant or disrespectful to anybody, but I don't. I don't get into nobody's else shit. But in terms of just Pennsylvania in itself, it's a Commonwealth state. So they can pretty much do anything they fucking want. We got our own constitution. Pennsylvania has its own constitution. You know what I'm saying? So they can pretty much do anything they want. But we got somebody good in office in terms of the district attorney who's trying to really help some of the corruption that's going on in the city.
Now, when you mention that, I think if they do an appeal and it results in a retrial, that's going to cost the state more money. You know what I mean? Just like we're talking about money. Even if this appeal goes to court, it's technically going to cost more money. Do appeals usually result in new trials, sentence reduction? Any idea about stuff like that?
Um, yeah. Well, I mean, it's levels to appeals, right? You got state, federal, right? You got state, you got federal, and supreme, right? You got all these different levels that you have to go. So if they don't honor it in one part, they have to honor it in another. And so that's pretty much how appeals go. And then once you get to, that highest level, because I think what is superior, supreme, um, you know, state, federal, all of these different, you got to hit all of these different levels. So once it hits the top level, you're pretty much asked out if they don't honor it because you just exhausted all levels, right? And so usually that's how it has to go. But with this new guy that we have in office, um, he's allowing certain people to see certain files in which were hidden at once upon a time, basically exposing um, the system and the justice system in Philadelphia.
There's just so many different places we could take that. But
We
honestly,
can.
I wanted to ask you about, Meek Mill. You know what I mean? We see Jay-Z, what they're doing, trying to get the lyrics, stop using the lyrics in the trial. What do you think about Meek Mill, like really stepping back even from his own music career to make sure that things are getting changed within the justice system?
It's honorable. I mean, he's been through the system. So, he can tell you firsthand on what it is and the corrupt state of it. And so he wants to do something about it, which is honorable.
So we touched on it a little bit earlier, but what can we expect coming from you in the future, music wise?
Last night should have never happened. I got a mixtape in the works right now with DJ Ismatic and Ace McLeod. We're trying to figure out the logistics on that. Again, filming a DVD. Well, not necessarily a DVD, a documentary. And we're going to pitch that to a few networks. And everything outside of that, brother, is just peace, love, and hair grease, man. I'm just trying to navigate through it all, promote positivity, um, and just understand my footing and where I need to be within the next, year or so in the culture.